Hi everyone, quick wrap up on Q1 2026 Sustainable Finance and ESG. The headline in Europe, simplification is landing, but expectations on proof, control and supervision are rising. So Dino, the omnibus has now largely settled, so how are companies adapting?
We're in a recalibration phase. The big shift is away from are we in scope to where are we exposed. Even though fewer entities now fall into full CSRD reporting and CS3 due diligence, value chains still pull companies into EU expectations through suppliers, product, and market access. Global groups are mapping exposure across the chain. It's the Brussels effect in practice. Pressure is now from disclosure to security.
So, what are companies watching most closely now?
3 points to monitor. First, implementation files are becoming operational. Energy efficiency and transition are shaping CapEx, financing and transactions. Along with energy prices, transition and carbon-driven deals rise in volume. Second, due diligence. Firms are watching how guidance on the supply chain and trade-linked rules shapes up because it will define evidence expectations and indirect exposure. UDR, CBAM and the forced labor regulations are excellent examples. That's where compliance becomes real. Third, governance. The Luxembourg Gender Balance Law reinforces requirements and CSSF expectations around board diversity, nomination processes, and disclosures for issuers. Antoine, let's bring this back to finance. What moved in Q1 on EU taxonomy and SFDR that matters most for banks and asset managers?
So Q1 was about consultation on simplifying the technical screening criteria under the EU taxonomy and also on the SFDR revision. So regarding the SFDR 2.0, even though the legislative process will still run for a long time before we have a final text, this initiative is already hitting product design, distribution and governance, with LPs asking questions about future plans and asset managers already have to refine their strategies and positioning. This revision will also surely be affected by the spot inspection findings published by the AMF in February on how firms capture sustainability preference in the MiFID client journey, which highlighted gaps, especially around product mapping, advisor training, and traceability and suitability reports.
Well, it looked like things are moving in France.
Indeed. And on top of the AMF report, the ADEME Climate Transparency Hub published an analysis of Article 29 Loi Énergie-Climat reports, showing improving overall disclosure on the maturity, but persistent weakness on taxonomy, biodiversity, and usability of PAIs. So this is a good guidelines to review if you're preparing those reports now.
On the supervisory side, what changed in Q1 for how ESG risk is treated?
Q1 reinforced ESG as a risk discipline. The EU supervisory authorities issued a joint guidance on integrating ESG into stress testing. So these guidelines provide national insurance and banking supervisors with clear guidance on how to integrate ESG risk into stress tests, which in turn, of course, affects supervised entities. And in January, the ECB underlined that it has embedded climate and nature in day-to-day work. So the message to bank is clear: build testable, evidence-based capabilities because supervisor will increasingly assess what you can prove, not just what you can publish.
That's the Q1 story: narrower scope, sharper scrutiny, and ESG moving decisively into risk and product reality. Thanks for watching.